The day of the tour arrived, and despite Yoongi's polite refusals, the principal had insisted. You are a professor of this department, even if temporary. The students need to see their faculty with them. And so, Yoongi boarded the train with the rest. It was a first class arrangement, two students per room, with professors allotted single cabins. Everyone was excited, buzzing with energy, but of course, there were pretty squabbles. A few girls got into a catfight over room sharing. To restore order, the principal called Van over. You don't have any issue with anyone, right? Then please adjust. Obediently, Van shifted her back. But when the count ended, every cabin was already filled. She stood quietly in the corridor, unsure where to go. That's when Yoongi appeared, tall and calm in his professor's coat. His eyes scanned her face, then the luggage in her hand. Without hesitation, he said, "Come with me." Some students widened their eyes, but no one dared comment. Professors had single cabins, and Yoongi simply claimed her as his. Inside the quiet cabin, the rhythmic hum of the train filled the space. Van's shoulders dropped the moment the door clicked shut. Vulnerability surged through her, and before she realized it, she stepped into Yoongi's embrace. His arms wrapped around her instinctively, one hand stroking her hair, the other tracing her tense back. "Relax," he murmured, pressing a soft to the crown of her head. Van nestled against him, turning her face toward the window. The scenery blurred past trees, fields, rivers, but all she felt was the steady rise and fall of his chest. Her heart tugged at a memory she had never lived but always imagined. Her first, her gaze slid to his, uncertain, her pulse racing. She leaned forward and pressed the softest peck against his mouth. Young stared, then let out a quiet chuckle, his eyes darkening with mischief. "That doesn't count, wifey." She blinked, startled. "What?" "You need to do it properly." His thumb brushed her cheeks. "If you me, it should live, no doubt." Her face burned, but his teasing only made her stubborn. She leaned forward again, capturing his lips more firmly. He smiled into the kiss, but pulled back just a fraction, shaking his head. "Still not right? Try again." Her heart pounded. Each time she reached for him, he deepened them just a little more, coaxing her into bolder touches. Soon, her shyness melted into warmth and daring, her lips moving against his with growing passion. When she finally pulled back, breathless, Yoongi's hand remained at her neck, keeping her close. His voice was low, tender, yet edged with playfulness. "There, now it's real, and for the record," he her again, lingering this time. "One is never enough." One hid her face against his chest, flustered and burning, while outside the train rode on, carrying them into a journey neither of them had expected. The train hummed through the night, rocking gently as the world outside blurred past. Inside their cabin, Yoongi's arm held Van steady as she curled into him. After their stolen, she had buried her face in his chest, too shy to meet his gaze, while he only stroked her hair with quiet adoration. They dozed like that, she, wrapped in his warmth, him occasionally waking to check if she was comfortable. Each time her body tensed in her sleep, he whispered softly, "Relax, I have got you," until she melted again against him. By the morning, they arrived at their destination, a coastal town with a stretch of glittering blue. The students erupted with excitement when the beach came into view, forgetting all about the palaces on the itinerary. "Just one more day here," they begged. But the authority refused. The train schedule was fixed, so for the single day, the students claimed the sea as their playground. Laughter rang out as they splashed and chased each other in the waves. Van, however, lingered at the edge. She didn't step fully into the water, but her friends weren't about to let her off. With mischievous squeals, they splashed her until her dress clung weirdly against her body. She laughed along, though her steps remained shallow, never venturing deep. From a distance, Yoongi watched everything. His arms were folded, sunglasses hiding his eyes, but his gaze was fixed on her. Every flinch, every smile, every moment. Hours later, as the sun dipped low and the group prepared to board the train, Yoongi noticed something was off. When walked slower than usual, her shoulders slightly stiff, lips pressed in discomfort. On the train, he cornered her gently. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she murmured, eyes downcast. He narrowed his eyes. "Van, don't lie to me." His voice softened, but the authority in it left her no choice. She hesitated before whispering, "It's the straps, the silicone strip. It got wet and it's been digging into my skin all day." Yoongi's jaw tightened. He turned away instantly, giving her privacy. "Change out of it now." Her fingers trembled as she began, but when the strap slid off her shoulder, he caught sight of angry red marks on her back, raw enough to bleed. His control snapped. He turned back without hesitation. She gasped, trying to curl into herself, mortified. But his hands were firm, coaxing her to straighten. "Don't you dare hide from me." Well, his voice was low, clipped with suppressed anger, not at her but at the sight of her pain. She obeyed reluctantly, face burning. Yoongi's touch gentled immediately as he examined the marks. His brows drew together in fury, but his fingers were tender, applying ointment with painstaking care. Every stroke was soothing, his touch both protective and loving. Finally, he pulled off his own black hoodie and tucked it over her head. It was oversized, shallowing her frame, but the fabric was soft and safe. "No," he ordered firmly. "Not until those wounds are healed. Do you understand?" Well bit her lips, nodding silently, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, not from pain, but from the overwhelming way he shielded her. He cupped her cheek, tilting her face up to him. His eyes softened. "You will never hide your pain from me again. If you're hurting, I will know always." The house was quiet when they returned from the tour, luggage resting by the door. Students had scattered to their own homes or dorms, but for Yoongi and Van, the silence of their shared space felt heavier than the noise of the train. Yoongi noticed her slow steps, the way she winced ever so slightly when she bent to put her bag aside. He didn't say anything until she tried to brush past him with a faint smile. When her shoulders stiffened, room now. She turned, startled by the firm tone, but his eyes weren't cold. They were laced with worry. She obeyed quietly, walking into their bedroom. He followed, closing the door behind them. Shirt off. Her cheeks flamed. Huh? He stepped closer, brushing her hair back, voice low. Don't argue. I saw you hiding your pain. Again. Do you want me to discover you bleeding all over again? The shame in his words made her chest ache. She lowered her gaze and slowly slipped out of his hoodie. The angry red marks from her were still there, though calmer now under the ointment. His jaw tightened at the sight, but his hands were gentle as he sat on her on the edge of the bed. He fetched a small medical kit, kneeling before her like a doctor in his clinic. His touch was professional at first, cotton swab, ointment, careful dabs, yet each stroke lingered. A care that told her he wasn't only treating a patient. You can be reckless with your studies, even your meals, he murmured, his fingers brushing tenderly along her skin. But not with your body, not with my wife's body. Van's throat tightened. I didn't mean to hide it. I just didn't want you to think I'm weak. Yogi's eyes softened. He leaned up, pressing his forehead against hers. Weak? You endured pain quietly for hours, and you call that weak? His hand slid down, covering hers. But I don't want a wife who hides from me. I want a wife who trusts me with everything. Her chest swelled with warmth, tears pricking her eyes. She whispered, I trust you. He then, not demanding, not teasing, but slow, sealing her words with his own. His lips moved gently against her until she melted, her arms winding around his neck. When he finally pulled back, his breath coasted against her ear. From now on, every ache, every fear, you will tell me. No excuse. Van nodded, leaning into his embrace, her heart pounding. For the first time since their strange forced marriage had been exposed, she didn't feel like a student cornered by whispers. She felt like a woman, cared for, wanted, and deeply loved. That night she fell asleep in his arms, his shirt still on her, his warmth surrounding her, not as just a professor's wife, but as Jungi's. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the curtains. For once, there was no alarm, no rush, no lecture scheduled, and stretched lazily under the sheets, her hair spilling across the pillows. Beside her, Yungi was already awake, scrolling through emails on his phone with his usual frown of concentration. But instead of business update, his phone kept buzzing with calls from the university. The first one had him arching a brow, answering with his clipped professional tone. Yes, Professor Mean speaking. When still half asleep, listened as muffled laughter floated from the other end. Yungi's face twitched. Then he sighed. I see. Yes, that's enough, thank you. He hung up, shaking his head. What was that? One mumbled, "Faculty," he muttered. "Apparently, I have gained a reputation for being a very protective professor." Before she could reply, his phone rang again. This time, he put it on speaker. "Youngie Shea," a cheerful voice teased. "So that beach tour was more than educational, hmm? I heard you kept your wife safe in first class like a crown jewel." Youngie's expression was priceless. Deadpan, ears faintly pink. "Faculty should discuss academics, not gossip." The laughter on the other end doubled. "Relax, we're just saying it's rare to see Professor Mill like this. You look good with her. She grounds you." He ended the call quickly, tossing the phone aside, grumbling under his breath. One giggled into the pillow, watching the man who once terrified Trusty now scream under harmless teasing. A third call came not long after. Youngie groaned, running a hand through his hair. "If this continues, I will change my number." Van sat up, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Or maybe you could just admit you like it." He turned his head, narrowing his eyes at her. "Like what?" "That everyone knows you're my husband. That they tease you because they see how much you care." Youngie's lips quirked into the faintest smile before he pulled her closer, pressing her to her temple. "I don't care what they think, but if it make you smile like that, then maybe it's worth enduring." Van's heart melted. She buried her face against his chest, whispering, "You are really different at home." He chuckled, wrapping his arms around her. "At home? I am not Professor Min. I'm just your husband." And as another call buzzed, he silenced the phone without a glance, choosing instead to hold her tighter, the teasing of the outside world fading against the quiet intimacy of their shared day off. For the first time in years, one felt like she could breathe without counting the cost of each breath. Her textbooks were no longer luxurious. She had to plan and save for. Youngie's personal library already had everything she needed. Sometimes editions so rare that even her professors admired them. Her evenings weren't spent worrying about fees or survival. They were filled with quiet dinners, Youngie's subtle glances in studies, and the strange warmth of having a home where she belonged. The flavors of life, simple, steady, and sweet, finally began to touch her tongue. She studied with focus. She laughed more often, and when Youngie reached out a hand to pull her into his embrace at night, she no longer hesitated. It was too perfect, almost unreal, until one afternoon the bell rang while Youngie was out handling business. Van padded to the door, expecting perhaps a delivery instead. When she opened it, her breath caught. A familiar face, her cousin. His eyes scanned her quickly. The comfortable clothes, the house behind her, the faint traces of luxury. His lips curved into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Well," he drawled, "looks like little Van finally found herself a golden nest." Van's stomach tightened. She hadn't seen him in years, and yet his presence carried the same suffocating weight. Old family ties tangled with rivalry and resentments. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Checking in on my dear cousin, he said smoothly, stepping closer. You vanished. Rumors flew about some marriage, and now I see it's true. His gaze darkened, sharp. So you think you can erase your past just because you have got a rich husband? I froze, throat tightening. His smirk widened, dropping lower venomous. Be careful, cousin. Secrets have a way of coming out, and if you are not willing to listen, he leaned closer, voice dropping to a threat. Then maybe I will make sure the whole world listens for you. The doorframe suddenly felt like a cage, and Wen's newfound comfort trembled under the shadow of his words. Yoongi returned earlier than planned. The moment he stepped through the door, he stopped. Yoongi was at the threshold, her cousin leaning just a little too close, his smirk dripping with condensation. Yoongi didn't announce himself. He stayed back, his dark eyes narrowing, observing the man's stance, the sharp tilt of his chin, the way Wen's shoulders stiffened in discomfort. He didn't need words. The body language was enough. The cousin straightened when he finally noticed Yoongi, quickly masking his hostility. Oh, you must be the husband. Yoongi's silence was heavier than a blade. His gaze swept over the man from head to toe, reading him like a ledger with depths. He didn't shake his hand, didn't offer greetings, just stood there with quiet power until the cousin muttered something about catch back in soon and left. The door closed. Yoongi turned to Van, but she averted his eyes. He didn't push. He simply pulled her close, his hand at her back, silent comfort in his touch. But when night fell, the weight of the encounter lingered. While lay beside him, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. And Yoongi noticed, of course,